Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Phenomenology Club, Coronavirus Edition. How's everyone faring out there? Where are you from? Where are you? What are you doing? Are you okay? Is everyone okay? I've been doing what I always do. Though I do feel as if this quarantine situation is inspiring me to do some things that I notice other people are doing, like working their way through things they wanted to be doing but haven't done. Personally, I'm trying to watch some movies that I've never seen that I wanted to see. Can someone say something? I feel like the chat is not doing the thing. I actually watched it right before coronavirus hit, so this doesn't really count. But some of the things I've been doing is trying to watch movies I've never seen, like Ben-Hur, which I watched. Have you guys seen Ben-Hur? Ben-Hur is hilarious for many reasons. Oh, okay, good, you're here. Okay, good. I see people. Good, you're here. Have you guys seen Ben-Hur? Fucking hilarious. The funniest part about the movie, it's a good movie, I guess. It's good. I like it. I have a boner for 1940s, 1950s biblical epics. That's just kind of my thing. The funniest part about Ben-Hur is that we are able to identify who is Jesus Christ simply from his wig. Like everyone in that movie, it's kind of remarkable. Like, Jesus has such distinct hair. I guess I never really even thought about how distinct popular incarnations of the Jesus character's hairstyle is until I saw Ben-Hur. Like, we literally only know that this character is Jesus because of his hair. Isn't that crazy? Have you guys seen Ben-Hur? Definitely recommend it. It's about 3 hours and change long, though, so get ready for that. We watched it in Phenomenology Club. There's also this really creepy part because, like, the thing is, like, they don't show Jesus's face at all. And then there's this one scene where, like, from the angle of the camera in the shot, you're supposed to see Jesus's face, but they, like, black it out in a way where I think they were trying to make it look like shade, but it does not look like shade. It looks like some creepy, like, true crime documentary, and they had to conceal Jesus's identity for some reason. They just put, like, a black square over this guy's face. It's just bizarre. But speaking of biblical epics, I'm going to be watching Cecil B. DeMille's Samson and Delilah. Very excited for that, starring Hedy Lamarr and somebody else. Watched the Hedy Lamarr documentary yesterday. If you guys seen that, definitely recommend it. Very depressing, but I think now's a good time for depressing movies. Also going to be watching Andrei Rublev. Excuse my American ass pronunciation. It's a Russian name. Have you guys seen that movie by Tarkovsky? It's like the only really famous Tarkovsky film I haven't seen yet. So I'm looking forward to it. I always want to watch it. It looks so up my alley, but you're like, I'm going to have to watch this for 3 hours and I know I'm going to get depressed. But I think that now is probably a perfect time to do that. Also started reading Simulation and Simulacra by Jean Baudrillard. I'm trying to do a lot of things. What about you guys? Are you guys safe? Is everything okay? Someone in our Phenomenology Club said that an earthquake hit today, I think in Salt Lake City. There's stuff going on. Is Jesus coming back? Is this what's going on? The Christians must be going nuts right now. Shit. Good thing I don't talk to them anymore because I don't think I could deal with that kind of peripheral anxiety. I'm sure it would rub off on me. They must be going nuts right now. Absolutely. But anyway, I feel like in the spirit of coronavirus, I would do something else that's related to coronavirus because just like everybody else, I'm worrying a little bit about money and finances right now. So I am exploiting the situation and choosing sensationalized topics that I think will get me more clicks. Because why the fuck not? And, by the way, speaking of doing things that you've been wanting to doing while you have some free time, I think that now, personally, would probably be a great time to start a podcast if any of you were thinking about that. I've been noticing I've been getting more clicks than usual the past week or so. I guess because people are just home and they have more time to do this. So, shit. Get that podcast going, guys. whoever's been thinking about one, go over to anchor.fm and sign up for your free account. They put your shit on Spotify and stuff. Just saying. I don't know. Shit. But anyway, in the spirit of that, let's talk about population control, because this is something that I see people have been posting about on social media. Because, social media doesn't like to, they have to create problems where, I think there is a problem. I'm not saying that they're fabricating problems where there is none, but I think that depending on the platform, there's a tendency to latch on to the one with the heaviest moral implications, because social media just loves to fight about morality, and I've seen this one come up a few times now. Annie Pearson says they've been thinking about Christians. Yeah, dude, I would hate to be a Christian right now. They must really be going through it. They're rereading Revelations. They're putting the Da Vinci Code together. Fuck. I can't stand, I can't, too much stress. It's all coming together for them right now. You know what I've been thinking about too? It's kind of funny. The simulation, if this is all a simulation, which I, for one, absolutely do not think it is, but, I know some of my listeners like to go there. If this is a simulation, then wouldn't that just greatly increase the likelihood of Jesus and hell also being real? I always think about how that's true and also hilarious. Like, maybe the conspiracy that this is all a simulation. We're all in the Matrix, designed by Elon Musk or whoever else. We're all in the fucking Matrix, right? That's true. And then we're going to find out that heaven and hell are also real. Because if this is a simulation, why wouldn't heaven and hell also be real? I feel like that would increase the likelihood by 100%, because most of us rationalize that it's not real because it makes no fucking sense. But if this is a simulation, that anything goes, right? And so maybe hell is real and waiting for me, and I can't fucking wait. That means Aristotle's down there. I'm definitely going to crack a cold one open with him. Nietzsche. They're my kickball team in hell. I'm already putting this together because I'm sure that they play kickball in hell. Why the fuck wouldn't they, right? Hi, Caitlin Moss. How are you doing? Is everyone safe? Does anyone have coronavirus? I have a cough that's kind of happened inexplicably over the past week, and I have been feeling shitty. But this is also the only time of the year ever that I ever sometimes experience some sort of sickness. So it's sort of hard to tell if I should be worried more than usual. But, I've got a lot of food here. I'm trying to just not expose myself to anybody. I'm not worried about my own self because I'm a young little fucking whippersnapper. I'm sure I'll be fine, but we got to look out for our neighbors, And I'm also worried about Steven because I heard that Steven is my pet bunny, and I heard that rodents can catch the disease. And Steven technically is a rodent, I believe. Does anyone know anything more about this? I'm very worried about Steven. That's all I care about right now. Steven's doing good, though. He is the king of social distancing. Let me just say that. He's been under that bureau all day long, staring at the wall. Does anyone else have a pet bunny? My pet bunny just he's got this thing. Sometimes he'll be facing outward into the room, but I would say at least for 50% of the time he spends under the bureau, he's facing the wall. And my theory is that he's facing the wall because, bunnies in nature burrow holes into the earth and they live in these fucking tunnel systems, right? So I imagine that, you burrow a tunnel and then at the end of it, they probably face forward, right? They face downward at the end of the tunnel. So they probably in nature, in these little burrows that they make for themselves, are used to sitting with an obstacle right in front of them, right? Right? Doesn't it fucking make sense? It's really interesting observing a bunny in an apartment, because I feel like you can observe what kind of behaviors come to him by way of nature, bruh. Whenever we get a Christmas tree, not every year actually, I think it might have something to do with the actual tree itself, what kind of specific genus of tree it is or whatever. But this past year we got a Christmas tree and Steven just fucking loved it. He couldn't get enough. He was just going under the tree, flopping the fuck over. He was in heaven. He was high off of this fucking pine tree. And he's a Netherlands dwarf, so, they clearly got a lot of pine trees over in the Netherlands. I imagine that, like, something within him, something inexplicable, is just creating euphoria for him. This little fucking bunny that doesn't get to experience pine trees on the regular. God, so many thoughts, so many things to think about. Anyway, population control, let's talk about it. The reason that I'm thinking about it, and well, like I said, I'm trying to exploit the reality of everything. I know that this is a hot topic right now, and it's a hot topic right now because apparently a few people are starting to show their true fucking colors and put out ideas into the world, such as, who cares if we knock off a few 100,000 people or whatever, because for one, that's natural, right? It's nature correcting itself, and maybe it'll be a good thing because we're overpopulated, right? These are the kinds of takes that I'm starting to see people put forward. I mean, I'm not really starting to see anybody put them forward, but I'm starting to see people respond to them. I don't know where the origin of these takes are, but, I'm sure they exist in abundance somewhere on Richard Dawkins' timeline. I assume Richard Dawkins types are going in on these kinds of takes right now, because they're so hard and scientific and love to confront us with these harsh scientific truths that the rest of us are just too pussy to say, right? But we're all thinking I'm right. But, it's no secret that questions of overpopulation itself and population control are controversial for very good reasons. For one, we all know that a lot of people think that the very idea that we are in some sort of a population crisis is in and of itself racist, because to say that there is a problem in our population numbers, this kind of spawns from the reality that we're in the midst of a resource crisis, right? We're just kind of seeing the beginnings of it. And hopefully coronavirus will be illustrative for us in a certain way, because as we can see now, we're like at the brink of something, or at least it feels that way, right? With the virus, we feel like even though things are already kind of crazy, we're all quarantined from jobs that we've been forced to go to every day for years now. And all of a sudden now they're telling me not to go. And we can project that pretty soon. I think they're saying the next 2 weeks, like, we might start to look like Italy has been looking for the past week or two, which is kind of scary. And I imagine that our resource crisis is going to look something similar. The ramp up, I'm sure, will be slower, but, the similar sort of circumstances. We all know that we're about to be in a resource crisis, and we all just kind of talk about it, but no one's really doing anything. So that's kind of interesting, and I imagine some of us, those of us who live long enough, will probably start to see shit hitting the fan at least a little bit. But, the people who follow from us, I think, will face the harshest consequences of that. So that's really fucking sad and treacherous. But, there's a reason that people say that the very idea that we are in a population crisis at all is racist. And I think that that's a totally reasonable criticism, right? I mean, because for one, there are enough resources to go around as it stands, but we don't really hold our most wealthiest people in the world, not just in our nation, but across the world. We don't really hold these entities that are actually responsible for most of the Earth's pollution and hogging resources and all of this. We don't hold them accountable. So it seems like whether or not there is a population crisis, it's totally possible that there is one, but it seems way too premature to even be talking about such things when we already know that people are doing things like polluting in excess, when we're still so dependent on fossil fuels, when we really don't need to be, all these sorts of things. It's like, well, maybe we wouldn't be in a resource crisis or a climate crisis if we just held these entities accountable and also held ourselves accountable, my brothers, my sisters, because we don't do enough of that either. Let's just be real, I've seen it passed around a lot that we all say, like, stop talking about us, only talk about the people who are doing this or that, but I think that we can all be held accountable. I think specifically of things like wasting water, um, and also just our use of electricity. Like, there is no reason, in my opinion, that we need 24-hour access to electricity, at least those of us who don't use things like ventilators and stuff. Why is it that I have 24-hour around the clock access to electricity when I also know that, electricity is generated using a lot of these sorts of things that are creating our climate crisis. I also don't think that we need 24-hour access to water in America. That we should learn to be more, we should adopt lifestyles, I think through force, because I think this crisis is a good example of that. If you don't force people to do it, they're not going to. So I personally think that it would not be a vain effort to campaign together for things like how, I think states should do things like maybe mandate the distribution of resources. But of course it's tricky too, because we live in such a corrupt capitalist fucking society. Of course it's difficult. I don't really want to hand over the keys to the fucking power plant to New Jersey, though I very much trust New Jersey. I trust New Jersey with my life, but I don't really want to hand over the big keys to the government while the government is still so corrupt. So I understand the hesitation there too. But personally, I think that we also we waste so much. We don't need nearly as much food as we always have access to, We don't need as much electricity. We don't need as much water, yada, yada. But anyway, population control. So people are saying too, amidst this coronavirus this little thing happening called coronavirus, people are also saying that they think it's a conspiracy for population control. And I just find this to be absolutely absurd, because what are even the worst projections of the fatality for this unfortunate event, the coronavirus? What are the highest numbers I've seen? I think was like 5 million or something. I mean, if you think that 5 million people dead could put a dent in the world's population, then you need a fucking calculator, okay? Let me tell you this. But speaking of math and statistics and using them, I think too that this is where I'll drop something that someone might call controversial. It's not controversial though. I think that the idea that we have too many people is actually really not something that we should totally avoid conversationally. I think that it's actually something that we should be thinking about personally. Because to talk about our human population for 1 second, there's 7 billion people in the world right now. We're always going on and on about mass extinction events and stuff, and oh my god, the world's gonna end, nuclear warfare, yada yada yada. Literally, no, you're an idiot. 90% of the population, if it destroyed itself overnight from, I don't know, whatever, nuclear warfare, which is impossible. You could set off every nuclear bomb in the world right now, and I don't think you would even kill 90% of the Earth's population. Not even close, but let's just say you could. You kill 90% of the Earth's population overnight. You know how many people are still going to be left? Anybody? 700 million people. We are so massive as a species. There's a reason, besides the obvious ones like our greed and corruption and our general flagrance and lack of caring about literally fucking anything except making money, there is so many of us. And it's crazy because this boom in our population has really mostly happened in the past century. In the past century alone, our population has increased over 700%. That's pretty fucking crazy. So while it's undeniably true that the main problem is industrialization, it's also true that I think that these things are coupled. The fact that industrialization is creating all of this climate crisis and such, but also an industrialized society is also creating in excess and in abundance for a population that has increased 700% in 100 years alone. I mean, it's fucking nuts. I would say that both of these things in tandem with each other are problems, but it's still important to think about why specifically don't want to have this conversation, at least without extreme caution, because it's also true that our most I don't even know, there's not even good language here to speak about these things, but what people would call underdeveloped, which it's shitty, forget it. But basically, the people having the most children and stuff right now are coming out of Africa and other nations that historically have been shafted by the rest of the fucking world. That's no fucking secret. So, of course, you don't want to identify a continent like Africa as the problem when, for one, too, I mean, they're not so heavily industrialized. They're not the ones that are polluting the fucking place to fucking shit and stuff. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, too, me being the ever persistent feminist, too, I would like to say that I think that this conversation is also crucially lacking feminist analysis, too, because people like to just say what I just said and be like, okay, case closed, Don't be racist. Don't talk about, how it doesn't matter that this population boom is happening because so many of these people are coming from Africa and other places that historically have been fucking shafted and exploited by the Western world. So shut the fuck up, especially since they're not the ones that are so heavily industrialized. At the same time, I mean, I think that the fact that so many women have you see so many women with so many more children per woman in places like Africa is because the women of Africa are really not given access to reproductive care, which I think they absolutely need. If you want to keep women economically disadvantaged as a class of people, if you want to keep women in poverty and you want to keep women from being liberated, then of course the first thing you're going to do is deny them access to reproductive health care, deny them access to birth control, deny them access to abortion. So it's not a coincidence. I think it doesn't represent some sort of just cultural disparity, which is where a lot of people want to end the conversation, like, oh, people in Africa just love having more children. That's not true at all. I think what's much more true is that the women in Africa are neglected by us and also by their own governments. They're not being given the kind of access to reproductive health care that they so crucially deserve, because I think every woman deserves this. Nobody should be forced to have children if they don't want or can't afford them, or if that greatly inhibits your own livelihood. So fuck, that's something that I think is crucially under talked about. But also when it comes to a question too of population control, overpopulation, I think too another angle that we don't really consider together often is just the question of efficacy and how much more difficult it is to get things done when the herd of people trying to accomplish a single goal is so much larger, don't you think? I mean, have you ever tried to lead a group of people to do anything? It's undeniable that the larger this group of people is that you're trying to organize towards some specific end goal, the larger this group of people is, exponentially, the more difficult it will be to achieve this goal, So I personally am interested in conversations about population too, from the perspective of just understanding that the more people we have, the more difficult I think it is to accomplish anything. I think America, the United States of America, is like the prime example of this. I think one of the reasons that it's so hard to mobilize us towards anything is because we're just so fucking massive. We're fucking huge. I don't think countries should be this fucking big, because I mean, look at us. We can't get shit done. And we have all of these different groups of people with such different opinions about things, and we can never come together to do anything. And the larger we get, the more massive we got. I think that that because the sheer amount of our population is just so large, then clearly you have to give more power to the ruling authorities so that they can enforce order, because the more people there are, the harder it is to instill order, law and order. If you have so many people, then you're just going to just give away more and more power to the ruling authorities, and then we have less power as individuals and as groups of people, that we find ourselves in an increasingly authoritarian set of conditions. I mean, the same is also true for China, wouldn't you say? I mean, I think China and America are very analogous in many ways. The sheer size of both of our nations and what kinds of authoritarian abuses we have seen enacted by both of our individual governments. I think that the extent to which you are able to abuse authority and to make the ruling power so much more powerful than the citizens themselves, the reason that you're able to have these incredible power disparities has much to do with the very size of us, right? What do you guys think, huh? Say something. Either way, like I said, this title was just to get coronavirus people to click it. As far as controlling our population with disease goes, fuck that. Like I said, even the worst fatality rate that could come from this would not make a fucking dent in our population, and even if it did, that is not the fucking solution. Okay, if I'm saying right now that it could be possible that we would be a society that could easily mobilize towards specific goals, if we were smaller, that doesn't mean that we should kill people who already exist. Absolutely not, especially since we know what this will result in, where people who have the most access to wealth and to resources and to all these things, they're going to be the ones to survive some catastrophic event like a pandemic, which we are in the midst of. So fuck that shit, bitch. I'm poor as fuck, okay? I'm not about to die in here. No, maybe I will. Fuck, I do have a cough, but we can't kill people, guys. That's fucked up. So that's not what I'm arguing for. But if I had to come up with some sort of a solution, if I were to say, if somebody asked me, do we have too many people in the world? Or at least, do you think that we would be benefited by having less people in the world? I think I would have to concede that yes. I think that we would be better managed by having smaller populations. So what I would do is do things like create incentives for people to have less children. And for one, too, being the ardent feminist that I am, I would incentivize this for women, because I think it would be kind of like killing two birds with one stone. Let's lift women up out of economic depression, and let's let women become more liberated as a class of people. I would start arguing for things like, creating universal mandates for women in every country. Women in every country have to have unrestricted access to reproductive health care. That would be my first motherfucking agenda. I'm president of the world right now. And then I would also, try to do things like give care packages to women, not to couples, to women. Like, you want to not have a kid? I'll give you $1,000. You have no kids for your whole fucking life? You get $500,000 fucking dollars right fucking now. How about that? So that's my solution, because I'm a solutions bitch. That's what I have to say. I just had to refresh. Anyway, not seeing a lot of feedback in here. That's fine. Keeping it short, keeping it simple. I don't know what you guys are doing. Buttress for president. Thank you, Mary. Buttress for president of Pangea 3000. The New World Order, motherfuckers. I feel like feeling right now a little bit like the Woody Harrelson character in that movie 2012, which I just watched. Have you guys seen 2012 with John Cusack and Woody Harrelson? Terrible movie, fucking terrible. I love it. I just watched it. I'm trying to watch a bunch of end of the world type movies, because why not? We're in the spirit of that right now, so let's do it. I was actually watching it and thinking that if that movie came out now, maybe some of the CGI, even though I fucking hate CGI, I think that they could have made it could be kind of cool. Because, like, these shots where, like, the world is just, the Earth's crust is just fucking cracking and breaking into itself and turning into a fucking ocean. I thought that if you used some more modern techniques, that could be cool. Did you guys see Detective Pikachu? Detective Pikachu, great fucking film. And there's that one part, spoiler alert, it doesn't fucking matter. There's this one part they're like on a mountain and it turns out to be like a Pokemon, like a turtle Pokemon or whatever the fuck that was. I don't know Pokemon because I'm not a fucking nerd. But the effects that they used during that scene, I thought were super trippy. I mean, maybe it's because I was on acid, but but I really did think that they were pretty fucking trippy, and they looked pretty good. If they used effects like that for 2012, I think that could be really cool. Just saying, just saying. But it's a terrible movie. But that movie is interesting, partially for some of the things I'm talking about right now, because the whole conflict in that movie is that the super wealthy people, in knowing about this event, which honestly this doesn't make sense at all because they really only knew about this event for like a week before it fucking happened, and they somehow managed to create these colossal motherfucking arcs that are going to allow them to survive once the world becomes Waterworld. Wow, I just watched Waterworld 2 and I just realized 2012 is kind of the prequel to Waterworld. Holy shit. Holy shit. Wow. Maybe not, though, actually, because in Waterworld, the reason that the water takes over the world is because the polar ice caps melt, and that's not what happens in 2012. I mean, I'm sure the ice caps melt in 2012, but that's not really what happens. God, so much stuff going on. Anyway, thanks for listening. Everybody join the Phenomenology Club Discord if you get a chance via Patreon. It's only $1. I hope that you do that. It's how I'm gonna survive in coronavirus. And we're gonna watch some movies. I think I'm gonna go get back to some stuff I should be doing. I hope you're all staying productive. Learn a new software, learn a new language. This is a great time if you have some time by yourself. Speaking as someone who always has time to myself, an abundance of time to myself, I will tell you that the best way to spend this time is definitely by getting some new habits going. Learn a fucking software, learn a fucking language, get into reading, do some fucking stuff, be productive. The more you sit and wallow and read social media or read this or that, the more you will waste away. Don't waste away. We need you here. Give it a thumbs up if you feel like it. I don't give a fuck. Time to go watch some Thomas the Tank Engine, bitch. I love you all. Talk to you later. Goodbye.